Welcome everyone to this episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio. And we have a special guest with us today, Harry Moser, but everybody knows Harry. He's known worldwide to a great extent in the United States. He is the founder and CEO, CFO, CMO of Reshoring Initiative. And Harry's done really an amazing job over the years in terms of reshoring, the topic of reshoring, and actually being greatly responsible for 1 million jobs coming back to the United States after they all bamboozled and left. Harry's got a bio that this is only a 30-minute show. And it'll take me longer than that to read, but he's been named the Man of the Year, Quality Professional of the Year. What was your latest one that I thought said that you were being indicted, but it meant inducted?
AME, that's the Association for Manufacturing Excellence. That's the lean organization. Right. Their Hall of Fame.
That's terrific. Do you get paid for all this, or?
No.
Not much, because you're only wearing a T-shirt.
Oh yeah, we should show that to people now.
Yeah,
this is
there
Manufacturing is Cool T-shirt. And
bet.
Anybody who sends me a case of reshoring that we did not know about gets a free Manufacturing is Cool T-shirt, which of course is made out of U.S. cotton and assembled and entirely sewn in the United States.
You know what, Harry? I may have to get one. Instead of wearing a tie, I'll just wear your black T-shirt.
Right.
We'll have to talk about that. Harry, for those few people, there's not too many, those few people who don't know who you are and they don't know who Reshoring Initiative is. Give us the longer version of an elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch for the Reshoring Initiative?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a few minutes as to what you've been doing and where you got your credentials to be talking about manufacturing.
Maybe I'll go historically. It's easier for me to think of it. So yeah, I went to MIT, got engineering degrees, University of Chicago MBA. Worked in manufacturing, been in manufacturing for 55 years. That's enough to gain some credibility. Probably the highlight of my corporate career was being the president of Charmy, the EDM company, which became Agi Charmy and now is GF Machining Solutions. And so I was president of that for 25 years. It was a wonderful experience. We just had a great time and had a wonderful time with the product and the customer, wonderful employees, and then retired from that in 2010, founded the Reshoring Initiative, and it's a nonprofit, and the mission is to bring 5 million manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. to balance the $1 trillion trade deficit, which would require those 5 million jobs, which would be about a 40% increase in U.S. manufacturing. So it's a major challenge.
Sure, no doubt. Not to play can you beat this or can you top this? I'm in manufacturing 60 years. So between the two of us, we got 135 years of tribal intelligence about this one aspect of our society, which is manufacturing, which is the most important thing this country's got going for it.
Or maybe 115 years.
Or maybe 115 if I knew my math. Harry, so you now are we're doing this is the first show. We're going to be doing this monthly, the last Thursday of every month. Until we can convince Harry that he's got a great audience out there and they want to hear from him more than just once a month. But we'll talk about that. Harry, so Moser on Manufacturing. Tell us about it.
Moser of Manufacturing is the effort that I have. At the moment, I've got 3 or 4 articles, columns in 3 or 4 magazines, like Assembly Magazine, SME, Manufacturing Magazine, um, Fab Shop Direct, Industrial Heating, and every month or every other month, typically an article comes out in each of those, and it deals with the subject of reshoring. Now, it's not always just reshoring, but it's often something that is critical to reshoring, such as skilled workforce. Because one of the biggest problems we have is not having enough and well enough trained skilled workforce in manufacturing. So we deal with reshoring and with the things that companies, communities, states, the federal government, what all of those consumers, what all of those can do to accelerate that trend, because that 5 million jobs is a lot to bring back, and I probably don't have more than another 20 or 30 years to get it done.
Well, between you and I, that's maybe 40 or 50 years if my math is right. Harry, the issue that you brought up, which is something that my co-host Tim Grady, who's not here today, we talk about all the time, and that's the skill gap, the retirees, the great resignation, the losing people retiring, and so on. And it is a major problem. The country used to do, they used to have 40 million people in manufacturing. Now it's down around 12 million.
Something like that, yes. Yep.
So my math, that means we lost 28 million. How's that for math?
We lost a lot. Yeah.
We've lost a lot. And some of it's been replaced with automation, new technology, and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, I think that there are things that we should be doing that we're not doing, or we're not doing a good enough job. The business about kids going to college, you got to go to college, and, you got to get that $300,000 debt going before you get too old. So, parents play a role in that. I think parents need to be educated a little bit more about the potential benefit for manufacturing and having a career in manufacturing. If I had the choice between being an underwater welder and earn $150,000 plus versus getting a college degree and wind up being a shoe salesman in On's shoes, I think they're out of business. But in any event, it's a real problem. And there are many programs, and maybe you could speak to that, about the various programs that are trying to cure, fix, enhance a lot of these issues.
Okay, but just to build a little bit on what you said, there's a case that sounds sort of like that, is Milwaukee Area Technical College. So it's a large community college in Milwaukee, providing associate's degrees in technology, including manufacturing technology. Mm-hmm. And they are very proud of the fact that that is the second largest graduate school in Wisconsin, because only Madison, the main campus of the University of Wisconsin, has more students who already have bachelor's degrees. So you've got hundreds, I'd say thousands of people coming back to Milwaukee Area Technical College to get an associate's degree in a technical skill so that they can pay off the debt that they got getting their liberal arts degree. Which I think, that should be headlines in every newspaper in the country, I think. So that's one sort of anecdote that I think is very relevant. When you come down to the fundamentals, I think what you were talking about of everybody being told they have to go to university. So the actual role of guidance counselors in general is to tell each student what's the best university you can get into, and then help them do that. Whereas it should be to help them find the best career that they can have, combination of happiness, stability, income, all those kind of things. And I attribute it. Certainly, a lot of it is the strength of the university industry. we talk about the defense industry. Well, the university industry, I think, is much stronger than the defense industry because they've done such a good job of getting everybody to go to university, even though about half of them drop out and never get the degree and wind up with all the debt. But then you say, well, why does that happen? How do they get that strong? And I blame a lot of it on the U.S. government. So back like 9 years ago, I was called by the Labor Department to come down to Washington and explain to them how to get ready for reshoring, for the surge in jobs that were going to be required by all the reshoring. So we're sitting there in the Secretary of Labor's conference room, and they said, okay, Harry, tell us about it. And I said, well, I stood up and I said, well, first, the Department of Labor has got to stop being part of the problem and become part of the solution. And they said, what do you mean? You show us what you got. Okay. And I said, well, I thought that the Labor Department was responsible for the apprentice programs. And I thought they were responsible that we had the workforce we needed for the country to compete. And yet, I pulled up their website, one of a dozen that said the same thing. It's these bar charts that show income going up with number of degrees. I'm sure you've seen it. Yes. And that it says, as you get more degrees, you make more income. And it's only degrees. And then the headline will say $1 million more lifetime income with a bachelor's degree. But I said, why isn't there a bar right here in the middle, right next to the bachelor's bar, showing that those who passed an apprenticeship make just as much money as those who've gotten the bachelor's degree? Oh, good idea! I had to come down and tell them this, and they got fairly close to what I wanted. But there's still dozens of their education department and labor department website that say the exact same thing, and then everybody quotes them. Then you see the people article after article saying if everybody went to university, they'd make twice as much money and the economy would double. And they ignore the fact that that about 30% of people with university degrees at any time are in jobs that do not require a university degree. They're just Starbucks. They're the shoe store. And they also don't say that $1 million higher income, that something like 2/3 of it is due to the socioeconomic background of the student. In other words, Phil or Sue would have succeeded no matter what they did, and not specifically to getting the college degree. So they completely misinform, or at least they don't give all the information they should give. And if they gave all the information and aggressively gave it, I'm convinced the guidance counselors would change the story, the parents would change their perspective, and it would be a lot easier for us to get a lot of smart kids to enter the programs.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time, and I agree with you, it wouldn't be the first time that our government made mistakes. That's a oxymoron. They make mistakes repeatedly. They follow suit with what the last guy did as far as a ridiculous idea, and they just try to keep on doing the same thing over and over again. And I'll give you a perfect example. We now have tariffs against a lot of countries. There's not one tariff out of the 12 major ones that we've had over the last 20, 30 years that was successful. Because what they don't tell the people is that, for example, the Chinese steel tariffs, the people who pay the tariff is not China. Mm-hmm. I'm paying it. Mm-hmm. You're paying. Everyone is paying for the tariff, and it's not explained right. And I also blame the media for not explaining it correctly. So that's a serious problem in itself.
Yeah, I would nuance what you said just a little bit, and that is that it has not. The steel tariffs have not worked out well because the companies like yours that buy steel are now paying, 20-30% more for steel than a company in Germany or China or somewhere like that, and therefore, although the tariffs have helped the steel industry, it has hurt the people who use steel to make things.
Correct.
Okay. So you could say that's a problem with tariffs. Okay. Or what I would say, it's a problem with not enough tariffs, because if the tariffs applied universally to the steel and the products made out of steel and to every country, in other words, if we had a value-added tax, which almost all the other countries have, that applies a let's say, a 15% tariff to everything being imported into the country. If we were uniform like that, then I think if you looked at it, you might say, well, that's pretty good because that's helping me compete with the imports. And it would certainly help me get those 5 million jobs that I'm trying to get. So I'm taking it just the way it was done, I agree, didn't work, but I think there is a way to make it work successfully. But nobody in the government has the guts to go out and do it.
Well, not only that, they got their hands full, the last 2.5 years with COVID and skill gaps and manufacturing in itself. And now we have a war going on that could conceivably go on for a while. One of the things that I look at in terms of the Industrial Revolution in the 1890s, that event brought us to where we are. We brought over millions of people, put them in jobs, trained them, they invented things, and so on and so forth. I don't feel as though that we've got an immigration policy that works either. And matter of fact, as recently as now, and people leaving the Ukraine, people leaving Russia, maybe we should be looking to bring some of these talented people into our country. You want 5 million? Well, you brought in 1 million, so we're up to 4. You got 4 million to go. They just immigrated 4 million people into Poland and Romania and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people.
And since Ukraine was essentially a middle developing country, it's somewhere between developing and developed. I'm sure they have a lot more people with the technical skills that we need than proportionally than we do, because I'm sure they're doing more manufacturing. And so I'm entirely in favor of, right now the U.S. tends to bring people in because they're relatives of somebody or because they're a hardship case or there's a problem in their country. And you probably have to do some of that as a humanitarian thing. But in addition, you need to bring in the people that have the actual skills, the tool makers and the welders, physicists, mathematicians, what have you. But you want to raise the average competence and skill level in the country, if nothing else, to have the production and the wealth that'll pay for those poor ones that you bring in that don't have any skills.
Right. So we can pay them unemployment.
We do almost all the poor ones and not the skilled ones. Whereas Canada, for example, you come to Canada, you got some skill, you got something they need, they say, sure, come, if you're not a criminal or something, they let you in. And so, and for the US, it would have been so easy 20, 30 years ago when we were so dominant and so strong and so clean, so to speak, and our image isn't quite as good as it used to be for various reasons. And so it'd be harder now, but I'm still convinced if we opened the gates to the people with skills, we'd get hundreds of thousands of them ready to come in and ready to take on the role. And anybody who's working in Starbucks and says, well, that keeps me from being an engineer, I say, well, go get the degree, or become a tool maker.
It's funny. This morning, driving into our facility, I was listening to the news, and they were talking just about what the United States should do in terms of the immigration issue that's occurring, and that maybe we need to jump in and take some of the pressure off of other European countries and bring in Ukrainians, bring in the good Russians, and start building from within by using people from the outside. And I think it's so important, if not from a humanitarian standpoint, but from a necessary pinpoint to add to our manufacturing successes.
No question about it. Most economists would say, if you want the GDP to grow, there's two factors that make a difference: the number of workers and the productivity of the workers.
Right.
and you put those two together, that tells you what your output's going to be, what your GDP is going to be. So if you want more GDP per citizen, and you want, especially as you and I get older and become somewhat less productive, as that happens, you need more of these younger people with the skills and the enthusiasm to come in and make the pie bigger. So that otherwise Social Security, Medicare, federal debt, all this stuff is going to collapse eventually. So you need to strengthen the core. If, like someone said, the center must hold, or something. There's something from one of those wars. The center, well, the center is manufacturing, and the center must hold. So manufacturing must be strengthened, and if Americans don't want to do it, then bring in the people that want to do it, and bring them in here and put them to work.
One of the problems we have, of course, is the immigration system, and we have this diametrically opposed political system that we have now, which unfortunately they fight against each other over yesterday's weather.
Yeah, silly stuff. Yeah,
stupid stuff. And I think that, they were talking again this morning about immigration and all the problems with immigration. You need this visa, that visa, the other visa. Why not take an exception? We have a humanitarian crisis going on there. We have a manufacturing jobless issue going on here.
Solve both of them.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Right. They could do it. They could do it by noon today.
I had somebody came to me from Mexico 2-3 years ago. He was in the sewing and apparel industry, and he had this idea to set up a chain of cut and sew, so sewing job shops across the United States, and hire the female illegal immigrants who had sewing backgrounds, who had skills, put them to work making the stuff that we're now importing, because we import 97% of the apparel that we consume. Right. Except my shirt, maybe your jacket, and they and after 3 years or 4 years of having no problems and working hard, they'd get the citizenship or a green card. So you pull them out of the shadows, become tax-paying, productive citizens, balance the trade deficit. I mean, it's a good idea. Now, I didn't know how to make it happen, but I thought it was intrinsically a good idea.
Well, it is a good idea, and the idea is still a good idea. Yeah, there's millions of people like that around the world that we could help them, and they could help us. And unfortunately, we don't have the political will that we need to make that happen.
Yeah, and it's especially a thing we've learned, I think, from COVID and from Suez Canal and from the Russian-Ukraine thing, and from the possibility of China decoupling and not shipping us products, is that it's absolutely essential for the country to be more self-sufficient. There's so many things that we do not produce or cannot produce in sufficient quantity that one or two of these disruptions happening could totally devastate the economy. People would be, I don't know what they do if you couldn't get clothing and you couldn't get food and you couldn't get it would just be a disaster here.
Well, to your point again, they put the tariffs on Chinese steel coming into the United States. We only import 8% of our steel from China. 8%. It's nothing. And I don't get it. And we the populace, the citizens, we're the ones paying it. No. Meanwhile, there are, and you pointed out that there are things, products, not only steel, but other things that we can't make anymore. Because we bought in and drank the lemonade about globalization from John Kennedy, who started the whole global economy concept, and Bill Clinton also supported that significantly. But he was the last president that we didn't have any debt.
Well, oh, we reduced the debt under him.
Oh, right,
We
right.
still had
That's
debt.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But now
But
about debt, my feeling and my idea about the national debt is it will never, ever, ever be paid off.
mhm.
It,
uh, there's an interesting. Do you know who Ray Dalio is?
I know the name.
Okay, he's one of the smartest people in the world. He's a hedge fund, I think,
Mhm.
owner, billions and billions of dollars. And he's written he did a video. He wrote a book, and now he's done a video on it that shows how empires, civilizations, go up like this, and they peak, and then they come down,
Right.
and go up, and he attributes most of the eventual decline, to getting too much debt, not being able to pay off the debt, and eventually the civilization collapses, and then some other more aggressive, more thrifty, harder working group, tougher group comes in and takes over, so to speak. And he showed it happening to the Dutch, to the British, and happening. It hasn't happened yet, but happening to us. And our federal debt is has gone from 20 trillion to 30 trillion in the last, I don't know, 4 years or something like that.
Right, right.
And you could see, well, we had special oh, there's always special problems, and so the so and most everybody I read says yes, they agree that it can never be paid off, because the debt isn't even just that 30 trillion that's on the books, but it's the unfunded liability of Social Security, the unfunded liability of Medicare, things you and I both know about. And there's all the states with their unfunded pension liabilities. You put all that together, and it's not 30 trillion, it's maybe $100 trillion effective debt. And there's no way they're going to earn enough money to pay that debt off. So most people, most of the experts would say they will inflate away the debt. So the debt, if they owe, a trillion, and if they allow prices to go up and wages to go up by a factor of 5 or 10, then if they continue to extract the same amount of taxes as a percentage of our income, it's only a tenth as hard to pay that debt off. So the risk is severe inflation as a means of paying off the debt, or at least keeping the debt so that the country does not default.
Well, we're doing a good job. We're at what, 7.5%
Inflation.
inflation, I think. So we're doing a good job there.
Well, that wouldn't be so bad if the dollar would come down a little bit, because an overvalued dollar, due to being the reserve currency, is one of the reasons that we're not price competitive, and that it's hard to bring the work back to the U.S. So if the inflation would cause the dollar to come down, but the exact opposite has happened,
Yes.
partially because of Ukraine and Russia, that's caused a flight of currency and assets into the U.S., which is the safe haven, and has driven the dollar up and made us less competitive than we were otherwise. There's a bunch of things you and I would do if we ran the zoo.
Well, I got my own zoo that I'm running, but and I don't know how big your zoo is, but a zoo nonetheless. I find that what is going to go on that's going to continue going on for some time. I don't think that we're going to see much relief, even though you take the Institute of Supply Management, for example, who I'm sure you're most familiar with. They say things are, manufacturing is going to boom straight into 2023. And I have to tell you that over the last 4 to 6 months, my metal company, All Metals and Forge Group, has come a long, long, long way back from when the beginning of the COVID pandemic started. So, but again, you're right. It's an inflation-driven economy that we have right now.
I hope some of that work that you've picked up is work that was previously offshored, so that you can submit it to me and you can get a shirt that you can wear on a future show.
I do. You know what? Next month, August 31st. I'm sorry, not August. April 31st. I'm moving things along. April 31st is your next show, and I want a T-shirt.
You got to send the case in. You got to document. You got to work before you get lunch.
Harry, it's me. It's me. We know each other almost 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
Something like. We've met at many conferences.
I'm always delighted to see you at the trade shows and the conferences. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm easy to find. The yellow jackets are a brand unto itself. And yes, this is a US made jacket.
Congratulations.
Harry, this has been a lot of fun. Do you have any parting words for us?
First, look forward to seeing everybody, in future months, and to working with you again, Luke. It's always a pleasure. Basically, as we'll tell you in the future sessions, we're here to help you win by reshoring, to help you, your company, either decide to reshore and be more profitable by doing so, more sustainable, or to convince your customers to reshore and give you the business instead of continuing to import. So think of this. I mean, I hope it's entertaining, and that's great. But the takeaway is for you to find opportunities to reshore inside your company or with your customers, and for us to help you do that. And if we've done that, then this is wonderful.
Well, you only have 4 million more to go. You have done the first million, and first million is always the hardest. That being said, I look forward to talking with you again next month. And to our, why don't you give us your URL again?
So either just look up Reshoring Initiative, or it's www.reshorenow.org.
Okay. And everyone, I appreciate your joining us on this new podcast called Moser on Manufacturing. And he's a good humorist also. He knows how to take a joke. So everyone tune in. We've got four shows now that we're running, and including Manufacturing Talk Radio. So give us a look up, listen to us, and we'll see you at the next show. Harry, thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lewis. It's wonderful again.
Take care. Bye-bye.